Welcome. It's nice to have you here.
I'm so glad you could come. This is going to be such an exciting day. I hope you enjoy it. I think you will.
Welcome to the wood shop, everyone. So I'm going to make my wife a cutting board using purple heart and hard maple. And so the first thing I'm going to do that is I'm going to check the sides with the straight edge to make sure that they're flat and straight. Any imperfections will require me to mill them, and so I'm going to check the ends first, and then I'm going to switch over and I'm going to use a level, and I'm going to check the tops and bottoms to make sure that they're flat. And there are some imperfections, but nothing that can't get milled out easily. So let's go ahead and move on from there. For the design element of this, I decided to take one of the two pieces of purple heart and cut it in half. I needed to measure it. I'm using this steel rule to do that, and it ends up being just a shade under 1.5 inches. So cut it right down the middle, about 3/4 of an inch. Here we are at the bandsaw, and I'm going to use it to cut the board in half. And the fence can only get 1 inch away, whereas I need the fence to be 3/4 of an inch from the blade. Using this little 6-inch adjustable square, I'm going to use the kind of L edge against the blade and use it like a depth gauge set for 3/4 of an inch to go against the fence. I'm using this piece of maple, and I'm going to fight with this tape measure while I'm trying to square up this piece of maple and clamp it in place to make my fence. Finally give up on the tape measure, and I switched to a combination square that I can use as a longer depth gauge. Everything's square. Check the cutting depth now. Well, there's nothing left to do now but cut it. I kind of forgot that I was going to need something to help push it through the blade. Luckily, there was a piece of scrap nearby that I could use, and then my dad also helped pull it through at the very end. Well, the pieces weren't exactly even, so a couple passes through the planer, both at the same time, so that way I can guarantee that they're the same width. Alright, so here we're going to do the first set of glue ups. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to glue it up into 2 pieces. That will allow me to do some milling afterwards, and you'll see that in a little bit. All right, two things about the clamping process. One, the brown paper is butcher block paper. We ran out of wax paper just to protect the clamps. Two, the clamps I'm using are parallel clamps, and then you'll see that I come back with the squeeze type clamps as well, just to add some more clamping force. The more the merrier. One of the things with the butcher block paper that I definitely don't like is that the glue will actually stick to it. And here I'm actually chiseling some of the excess glue and the butcher block paper where it got stuck. So I'm actually using a chisel to kind of run along there and clean that up. And then once that's done, I will take it through the jointer to even out the one edge before I can take it in through the planer. I want to use the chisel because the glue will kind of affect the jointer and the planer, mostly the blades. It'll make you have to replace the blades more often, so obviously I want to avoid that. One of the important notes of the planer is that it's meant to adjust and make the thickness. I'm using it to even everything out, so you always need to have one side that's perfectly even, and then when you put it through the planer, that evens it out. I need to run both boards through the same number of times, so that way they're going to come out the same thickness. I'm only taking off like a 64th or less each pass. You can actually see on the Purple Heart where it's going, because it goes from like a purpley to more of a brown as that wood gets disturbed. It oxidizes and makes it purple again. Kind of neat though. And if you counted, it was a total of 9 passes. And now it's time to glue up the 2 pieces into one solid piece to make the actual cutting board. And this time what I'm going to use is cauls. I don't know how to spell them, but basically there's going to be 2 boards that I'm going to, or total of 4 boards on either end, and that's going to help hold everything so that that center seam is going to be exactly where I need it to be, and that there's not going to be any kind of unevenness, so that way a lot less milling after the fact, and it's just a matter of just cleaning up the glue essentially is all I'm going to need to do when this is all dry. And you may have noticed, I have wax paper this time. A day or 2 has passed, and it's a little bit cooler, so I'm wearing a sweatshirt this time. And the glue's dry, so I'm going to run it through the planer, clean up that glue, and make sure everything's nice and even before we can finish up this cutting board. Unfortunately, I lost some footage. I lost the footage of where I rounded over the 4 corners. That was kind of a neat little process. Kind of wish you would have been able to see it, but alas, I think I forgot to actually record. But anyway, here we are with the router. We're using a 1/4 inch round over bit, and I'm going to go around all the way around, top and bottom, and then we'll sand it off. For sanding, I'm using a random orbital sander with 300 and I think it's 330 grit sandpaper. And then once I've completed with that, you'll see that I'm gonna take some damp cloth and wipe it down, and that's gonna, one, remove any of the dust, as well as that dampness is gonna help raise up the end grain. And then I'm going to come back with 600 grit, and I'm going to sand that smooth, and that'll give it a nice, really smooth finish. And to treat this, I'm going to use Total Boat Wood Honey. It is food safe, as you can see there on the label. And basically, you just put it on until the wood just stops absorbing it. I ended up with 3 coats on the top, 2 coats on the bottom. And basically, it got to the point where there was still an oily kind of film on it, so it was real damp. Just tells me that the wood stopped absorbing it. You come back every so often and reapply after a while, just to keep it safe, and it keeps the wood, kind of fresh and prevents it from drying out. I only show the 1 coat on the top here, but I do want to say this is the first time I've recorded doing woodworking. Camera work was kind of shoddy at best, so maybe next time I'll do better. Thanks for watching.
I'm not great at farewell, so that'll do, pig.
That's the worst goodbye I've ever heard. And you stole it from a movie.